Hey friends, we are back. This is episode 3, week 3 of Simple Drums Done Well. We're gonna get into some cool stuff this week. Last week I feel like we really got in over our heads. The scope of that episode was so overwhelming for me to edit and to work on and try and feel like I was still getting some practice done in the midst of it, which is really the point of all of this. So there's no way that is going to be a sustainable model I'm realizing for me, so I'm going to try and simplify, as the title would suggest, a little bit this week and hopefully still provide some value to you guys. That's the goal for this week. This week we're going to talk about a drummer named Chris Smith. Chris is a great jazz drummer who lives He just recently launched a website called Jazz Drum Hang, which is a really great online resource.
Really great, incredible online resource
to explore jazz drumming and jazz history. He really goes in depth on both the history and the vocabulary side of things. We're going to look at a phrase from a video that Chris did reviewing Noble and Cooley drums, and he played a solo up front. Played this really cool Flam accent phrase that caught my ear. And I've heard it before, but when he played it in that context, I thought it was sweet. So I transcribed this whole section of his solo, and we're going to go into depth on how we can get into some of that material.
But before we do, a little bit of history.
So I first actually met Chris when he was a clinician / guest artist at the Buddy DeFranco Jazz Festival in Montana. And I was part of the jazz program, and I got to work with Chris and see him do master classes as well as watch him perform, and it was awesome. So Chris is a very well-studied jazz musician. He got his undergrad from Northern Illinois University. He went and got his master's from Manhattan School of Music in New York City and studied with John Riley there. He has played with Randy Brecker, Dick Oates, the Vanguard Jazz Orchestra.
Pre-corona.
Regularly plays with the Birdland Big Band and another great saxophonist named Andrew Gutakis. So check out Chris and check out the drum hang for sure. The phrase we're going to look at today is a variation on a Flam accent. And we're going to look at a few different ways that we can use this idea to practice to start to incorporate it into our playing. So the first thing to talk about, I think, is to really break it down. Still planning on releasing a video talking a little bit more about the philosophy I want to have with this channel. Again, the name of the channel is Simple Drums Done Well, which is a little bit of a misnomer. It's not exactly going to end up being simple. Basically, my tastes are such that I'm into drummers who play really interesting sounding and maybe advanced rhythms, but that's kind of subjective. But the idea is that we can break all of these more advanced, interesting sounding rhythms down into simple concepts and simple tidbits that we can then build on and start to get at these more advanced sounding phrases from the simple beginnings. That's again why we're kind of exploring what might not seem like the simplest of phrases or concepts, but still trying to come at it from a simple perspective. So this phrase from Chris that we're going to look at is a variation on a Flam accent. Flam accent, of course, is the 21st rudiment on the 40 essential rudiments, sticking of right, left, right, left, right, left. All right, so a Flam accent, again, a right-handed Flam, left, right, and then a left-handed Flam, right, left. So it's generally notated as triplets, so 2 groups of 3, right, left, right, left, right, left, right, left, right, left, right, left. But the version that Chris plays, and a version that I think you actually see in a lot of people's playing nowadays, it's kind of a popular phrase, which is really cool that it actually kind of transcends, I think, any genre. Chris is incorporating it into this bebop sort of solo, but also Mike Johnston, who is arguably the most well-known online drum teacher today.
The biggest, hugest, most incredible, amazing online drum teacher today.
Did a lesson on this exact same kind of phrase about a year ago. And I think you hear it in other modern jazz players, but also rock players. And that's just cool, I think, that it can kind of transcend genre like that. The version that both Mike did a lesson on actually, and that Chris uses in this particular video, is a left-handed Flam accent that repeats. So instead of doing the alternating version where you start on the right and then the left, you're always gonna just start on the left. So it's left, right, left, left, right, left, left, right, left, left, right, left, etc. My glasses are super dirty again. I always notice this with the lights. Hopefully you guys can't see that. Like, that dude's dirty. I don't know about that dirty dude. The dirty dog. Nothing like a dirty dog, bro. Let me tell you what. Oh, yo. So the left-handed Flam accent is gonna happen between the floor tom and the snare drum. So for our 7-note phrase, we're gonna do shut the boom. But also we can try a lot of different orchestrations with where we put the Flam and where we put the single strokes and move it around the cymbal, maybe add a second bass drum to sometimes be with the Flam as well. Can be a cool sound, especially off of the cymbal. So different orchestrations can be a cool sound as well. Word. Okay, so we've got our left-handed Flam accents going on, and then one thing that I've been thinking about a lot recently is the idea of rhythmic transposition. And again, in the interest of not broadening the scope too much, lest I get overwhelmed like I did last week, we're gonna try and keep it relatively simple for right now. But these are some of the ways that we can take these ideas and really stretch the concepts behind them and hopefully start to figure out how they will come out naturally in our playing. So the word transposition, right, when it applies to melody and harmony, of course, is transposing into different keys. So if a song's in the key of C, transpose up a whole step, and now you're in the key of D. But since we're talking about rhythmic transposition, what this means is actually moving things horizontally, rhythmically, but keeping the phrase intact. You can do this with anything, and I think it's a really great exercise to open your ears and to open your coordination. But say you take a basic rhythm like 1 E and, okay, so 2 16th notes followed by an 8th note, 1 E and. And if we want to transpose that rhythm back by 1 16th note, instead of starting it on 1, we're going to start it on the of 4, and then we're going to have a 16th note on beat 1, and then an 8th note on the E of 1, right? So it would be a 1 E, right? A 1 E, 1 E and a 1 E. So even though that rhythm sounds different, technically it's the same spacing and the same number of notes, just transposed back 1 16th note, right? So you could do that, see if you can feel that exact rhythm starting on every 16th note within a measure, and already that's gonna open up your ears a little bit. But when you start to do this with longer phrases and even beats, can really start to mess with your ear, kind of throw off your sense of where beat 1 is or where the actual pulse is. For that reason, especially even if it's just an exercise, hopefully we can use it musically. And I know certain styles of music, especially jazz and drummers like Ari Honig, you'll hear stuff like this a lot in a musical setting. Hopefully just the exercises that we're going to come up with can start to open our ears to hear some of these things a little more naturally. I think one of the first important aspects of not getting tricked and not letting your ear get fooled is to almost hear the rhythm like it's a melody and be able to feel the rhythm within your body or within your brain in a way that you are still feeling the downbeats naturally, right? I think when we hear people like Ari Honig or Chris Smith do this stuff, at first it seems like magic, and we're like, wow, there's something off kilter about that, and it's kind of throwing me for a loop. just like magic, we're kind of seeing it as this incredible thing that is otherworldly in some senses, I feel. Definitely these musicians who are employing these ideas are doing so within a framework that they very much understand and that they're relating to their own downbeat, you know, to the downbeat and to the pulse, right? They're not just guessing, they've done the homework and they're able to use these things in context, right? So one thing I've noticed that helps me at least start to be able to hear phrases like this is to actually use smaller chunks of them to begin with and then begin to add on the rest of the phrase. And I actually like to work backwards. So in the case of this particular phrase, we're going to check it out in a second on the drum set. Instead of trying to do a full bar of the phrase, maybe writing out the full bar so you can see what it looks like, right? But then just starting on beat 4 and hearing what that sounds like getting to beat 1. And then once that sounds natural, starting on beat 3 and then hearing what that sounds like getting to beat 1. So on and so forth, start on beat 2 until you have a full bar of the phrase, right? So in the case of this particular Flam accent phrase we're looking at, that would look like this and sound like this. So that can really help with the kind of hearing these phrases in context. Other things that help include counting out loud.
And a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a...
Whether it's every 16th note or just trying to count the downbeats, if you could really count those downbeats consistently whilst playing these more complicated phrases, that's going to help your brain start to actually feel out and comprehend where these rhythms are lying. And then one other thing that I've noticed a lot of really great drummers do and that I'm trying to incorporate more is just moving your body in such a way that you are really intentionally feeling the beat in your body.
Prepare for the Whitest explanation of how to feel music in history.
Okay, so if you're playing 1, 2, 3, 4, you know, whether it's side to side or maybe up and down, 3, 4, you know, or 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 2. You know, however you want to kind of dance in your chair. And whether it's a little bit more of a full body thing, which ideally you probably want to keep your posture intact and not be moving your hips too much, though I kind of find it's nice, it like loosens up your back a little bit. You notice somebody like Dan Weiss or Marcus Gilmore, they've got their heads moving side to side. Kendrick Scott does this too, where you can tell they're really feeling the beat, at least in their head, you know.
It's the news time.
Huh? It's like their fifth limb is their timekeeping device in their body or their head as well as their limbs. Being able to do something like 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. You know, and really just keep that pulse steady and that movement steady while playing like a dotted eighth note rhythm like that is actually harder than I think it initially sounds. So that's worth trying, even just clapping 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. When we watch Chris play this phrase in the video, he's playing 2 of these left-handed Flam accents, followed by a bass drum, or I guess you could say preceded by a bass drum as well. So the way that I want to think about that is 16th notes and groupings of 7, okay? And we should, I think at first, just start to fit it into very specific amounts of time. If we say, okay, we're dealing with a group of 7, so it's 2 left-hand Flam accents, followed by 1 bass drum, that's our 7th note. And we need 16 total notes, right? So you just do the math on 1 bar first, right? So you can do the group of 7 2 times, 7 plus 7 is 14, and then you have 2 notes left over. And something that can be kind of fun that I actually stole from Mike Johnston at one point. With those 2 notes, that's your creative time. You're doing your 2 groups of 7, your 14 16th notes, but those last 2 16th notes, you get to do whatever you want. So whether or not that's sticking with what the pattern would have been in that space, or maybe putting a different subdivision in that space, that can be really fun to experiment with that kind of stuff. And I think it's good practice to incorporate some left brain and some right brain stuff in there. But then maybe we want to try and figure out how we can use this phrase over 2 bars. So in 2 bars of 4/4, there are 32 16th notes. 7, of course, doesn't go evenly into 32, but basic arithmetic.
Math rhythm, baby.
Basic arithmetic, 7 goes into 28 4 times, right? So we're gonna do 7, 14, 21, 28, and then we are gonna have 4 notes left over to get to 32. And again, those 4 notes would be your creative space, right? Or your time to do something different, something of your own. Okay, so that's step 1. And then step 2 is gonna be to think about this rhythmic transposition stuff. And I think you can do this in kind of a macro and a micro sense. So in a macro sense, we're gonna look at doing this phrase starting on each beat in 4/4. So we started on beat 1 and went for 1 measure. Let's move backwards, right? So now let's start on beat 4 and then go through the whole next measure, okay? See how that sounds. And then we'll go back and start on beat 3 and then go through the whole measure. And then finally go back and start on beat 2, go through the whole next measure. So that would almost be a full 2 measures at that point. I'm sure it would be worth doing the same thing, do a full 2 measures starting on beat 1 and then go back and start on beat 4 and go all the way through 2 measures, okay? And of course the amount of notes that you're gonna have left over is gonna change based on where you start that, okay? So that's our macro transposition. And then our micro transposition would be to start this phrase on all of the different 16th notes within a measure 4/4. Now let's start our 7-note phrase on the E of 1. Okay, so instead of having 2 notes left over at the end of our 1 bar, we're gonna have 1 note left over. Now if we start it on the and of 1, we're not gonna have any notes left over. We're gonna end right on the downbeat. If we start it on the of 1, we're gonna get cut short. But that's okay, right? And we'll just see where that falls. If we start on beat 2, we're gonna get cut short by 2 notes, right? But those first 4 notes are maybe your fun time now, okay? So first 4 notes, first beat, you can do
Something creative, do what you want.
and then you have 12 more 16th notes, 7 notes plus 5 of the 7 to finish out the measure that way. So that would be like our micro transposition, and we could do it over different numbers of measures, of course, as well, but I'm gonna try and keep it relatively simple for now. The last step, the last thing we're gonna try is this Flam accent idea can be tried in a few different ways that I think make sense intuitively. You're gonna recognize some of these things, I think, because they're pretty popular in modern drumming. So we always hear about the herta, right? And we hear that da-da-da-da-da-da. I haven't heard a lot of people compare the herta to this Flam accent. And once I was practicing, I realized, oh, okay, this is actually kind of the same thing. If you play a Flam with 2 taps, and then space out the Flam a little bit, that's just like 2 30-second notes with 2 16ths. And then I think we can also try it with a drag on the second note, like a left-handed Flam drag again. So really just adding a double on that second triplet. Maybe you could try a full Flam 5 if you really want to get
Crazy.
as your 7-note phrase. But the last one I wanted to try is more like a 30-second note version of this. So it also feels pretty natural, where you just play a paradiddle diddle sticking, right, left, right, left, left. So you would play 2 paradiddle diddles as 30-second notes and then a bass drum, and that would be your 7-note phrase. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. But I kind of like this version of that one that's a little bit more rounded out as well. So you're not really thinking 30-second notes, it's more just still hearing that dotted 8th pulse underneath. All right, cool, so let's jump on to the kit.
When the drums are there, you can play them for praise. You can share with all your buddies.
your creative space, right? Or your time to do something different, something of your own. your time to do something different, something of your own. Something of your own. So thanks again for checking out today's episode. Check back next week for episode 4, and check back later this week for a full transcription of Chris's solo from the video that we were checking out. Thanks again for stopping by. Really appreciate it. See you around. And here is also the part for the end of the video. You're gonna use this at the end of the video, I promise. You will. I'm gonna tell you what, I reckon there's nothing like a dirty dog. I'll tell you what. Yes sir, I'll tell you what, there's nothing like a dirty dog. We're talking about a hot dog, of course. Get a little bit of mustard, a little bit of ketchup. Nothing like a dirty dog. Alright, rock on. Can you see this? I don't know. From a little solo that Chris played. It's not a little solo, it's a big solo. But this week we're gonna talk a lot. We're gonna talk about stuff. Where's my pad? I need my pad. Where's my pad? Where'd it go? Did somebody take it? Somebody steal it? I need to find my pad. Is that it? I see it's it. Okay, PM my pad. Alright, really appreciate y'all coming by. We're gonna get into some cool stuff this week. Last week I feel like we really got in over our heads. The scope of that episode was so overwhelming for me to edit and to work on and try and feel like I was still getting some practice done in the midst of it, which is really the point of all of this. So there's no way that is gonna be a sustainable model I'm realizing for me, so I'm gonna try and simplify, as the title would suggest, a little bit this week, and hopefully still provide some value to you guys.